Hello, I am Joshua Flenley, candidate number 0190, and this is my testing video for the technical solution of my NEA. This video will be broken down into 5 sections based on the area of my checkers game that I am testing. This table here shows the order that I'll be conducting the sections of my test, starting out with the game logic used during the game. The first test is checking whether a piece on the board can be selected. If I go into a game, you can see when I click on this blue piece here that it has been selected. As you can see, the 2 valid moves that it can make. This is the valid moves are only shown where applicable. So if I click at the edge, there's no valid move shown off the board, and if I click this piece here, no valid moves are shown even though it's been selected. Now for the second test, it's to test whether pieces can move outside of the confines of the board. Now when I click on this piece, if I click outside of the board anywhere, it doesn't move, meaning that test has been passed as well. So the first 2 tests can be noted down as passed. Now for the third test in this section, we'll be testing if man pieces can move diagonally forward. So when I select this man piece, the only valid moves are in the diagonally forward direction, so I can move there. If I go back to the blue turn, I've selected this piece again, but this time you can see that there's only 2 diagonally forward moves you can make. You can't make a move diagonally backwards. So if I click on it, deselect the piece, it doesn't work. But if I click on the forward, it does select the piece. So this test has been passed. For the fourth test, I'll be testing whether man pieces can become king pieces. To use this, I will show a preset board just to make it a little bit easier. So here you can see that this piece here can jump over, and when it reaches the end of the board, it's now become a king piece. So if I select it back, set it back to the blue turn, move down here, you can move backwards, back to the blue turn, you can see that it can move diagonally forwards, left, forwards, right, back, left, back, right. So test number 4 has been passed, along with the next test where we're looking at whether they can only move forwards or backwards 1 space when there is no pieces, there are no available jumps. For test number 6, I believe it's 6, yes it's 6, we'll be going back just into the main game, and here you can see that if I set it up so that a piece should be able to jump over the red piece, if I select the piece, you can see that the valid move no longer is 1 square diagonally to the right, it's 2 squares diagonally to the right, as you've jumped over the piece. And if I click on this piece, it will remove the intermediate piece from the board. So test number 6 has been passed. This next test is an extension of the previous test, where we are chaining together jumps of a length greater than 1. So I'll be going back to the previous example that we used for the kings, where if I select this piece, it can jump over this piece here, and once it's landed in this position, it's realized that it can jump over another piece again. So the valid move, instead of being here, is in this end row here. And if I click on it, it removes both pieces from the board. Therefore, this test has been passed. The next test, we'll be seeing whether king pieces can chain together multiple jumps in different directions within the same turn. I have another preset scenario for this, and it is Y. So here you can see that this king piece here should be able to jump over this piece, then jump over this piece again, come back here, jump over this piece. Now it can jump over this piece in the opposite direction, and once again jump over this piece in the opposite direction. So if I click on it, it shows the valid move here, meaning that it's taken this path into consideration. And if I click on it, it removes all of the pieces from the board, showing that the king can chain together jumps in multiple directions within one turn. So this test has been passed. For the 9th test, a winner is declared if no team has no more valid moves, including having no more pieces. For this, I will for this test, I will play out a game and show that a win is declared when one team has no more valid moves. So if I boot up the game, here, and play out a game quickly, I will pause briefly and cut back to near the end of the game so that it doesn't take quite so long. Now we are near the end of the game. It is currently the red's turn. So if I select this red piece here, you can now see that this blue piece here is able to jump over it. And when I jump over it, it should declare that the blue team has won, as there are no more valid moves for the red player to make. So if I click here, it says red team's got no more pieces, blue team's won. It's been declared as a win for the blues. So test 1.9 has been passed. Now for test 1.10, I am setting all of the pieces as kings because we will be testing whether in the last 25 moves there have only been king movements without any jumps. So here, if we come in here and say true, we come here, see, these are the kings. And so we need to play out until we've reached 25 moves total within the game. And once we've got there, it should declare a draw, moving onto an end screen that has the draw highlighted in green. Nearly there now. And so after this blue move here, it should declare a draw. As you can see, we've now had a draw declared because there has been only king movements without any jumps in the last 25 turns. Additionally, I will show that it does not have to be the first 25 turns. So if I take this piece here and we say it's 25 turns from here, we move these pieces back and forth until we are satisfied. Now you can see that it's been declared as a draw again, even though it wasn't the first 25 moves again, proving that this test has worked and we can mark it down as it having been passed. For the next test, there are a few conditions. I have made a scenario for each of these conditions, which I will play out now. First of all is the scenario where there is one red king, one blue king, and two other blue man pieces. So after 16 turns, this should be declared as a draw if my algorithm is working correctly. So I will play that out now quickly. As you can see, after 16 turns, the game has been ended, and this implies that the outcome has been a draw, as the returned value when a draw is declared is green, and this is the RGB color that I used for green. This will be the same for the next two scenarios as well. So if I show the second scenario now, so it will require me playing out the game again, but as you can see here, the game has once again been ended, and a draw has been declared after 16 turns, meaning that this section has also been passed. So we will move to the next section. So for this test, it will be 3 kings against 1 other king. This piece here is just so that we don't trigger the 25 moves draw clause, so we'll be taking it in a minute. But if I start playing this out, we can see that once again, after 16 moves on each team, the game has been declared as a draw, ending the game, meaning that test 1.11 has been passed. Now for test 1.12, we're checking to see if a draw has been declared if each team only has 1 other king and 1 king piece and no other pieces. To do this, we will be using another preset scenario. And here you can see we have 1 king piece on each team and 1 other piece. And if I take this piece here, the game should be drawn, as it will be 1 king piece versus 1 king piece. I click here. We've exited the game. And here you can see that a draw has been declared, meaning that this test has also been passed. Now, for test number 1.13, I will need to play out 40 moves on each player in the two-player mode to verify that the player is given an option to draw the game. I will come back later once I have played out most of these 40 moves. NEA 40 moves on each side. So once each team reaches 40 moves, we should hypothetically have a draw button appear around here. And if I click on this draw button, it should declare the game as a draw. So just quickly, we will move up to this 40th move for the red team. And so now when I click here, a declare draw button has appeared here. If I click on it, a draw is declared, the game is ended, so this test has been passed. Now for the final test of this section, it has already been shown in previous tests, but I'll illustrate it again. I'll be showing that the turn is changed at the end of a player's go. And so if I start a new game and enter the game, I can click on this blue piece here and move it. And now, after I've moved this, if I try and click on any other blue piece, it won't be selected, I won't be able to move it. But if I click on a red piece instead, the red piece is selected and I'm able to move the red piece. And then this goes back and forward, not being able to select any red pieces, but being able to select a blue piece and move a blue piece and do it for the red, so on and so forth. So this game has been this test, should I say, has been passed. So that's the end of section 1 of the testing. So we will be moving on to section 2, which is testing the functionality of the AI. So for the first section of the AI testing, we will be checking to make sure that when it is a red player's turn, the AI will choose a move. So if I enter into a one-player mode, we'll select medium, for example, and if I wait, nothing happens because it's not the red player's turn. But if I move my piece to, say, this position here, the AI has moved a red piece in response. I can show again. It's moved another piece, and one more time, it's moved a piece into a new position on the board. So this test has been passed. For the second test, we'll be checking to make sure an AI player can take an enemy piece off the board. Once again, I will load up a game against the AI. We'll use the easy AI this time. And we will start playing to see if it will take a piece off the board. There you can see that a piece has been taken off the board when it was offered up. And if it takes it here as well, it's taken another piece off of the board. So this test has also been passed. The last black box test in the AI section, I will be testing whether the AI uses the system that I designed to find a value for each state of the board. I'll show this by inserting a print statement within the checkboard function to show that it is called when the AI needs it. You can see this print statement here. It shows the calculated value that will be returned in the following statement next to evaluated board score being printed out. So if I run the game, you can see that when I select an AI opponent, it's made a move, and the evaluated board score for various board states has been calculated, most of them being negative because pieces will be taken off the board. And that means that the last test has been passed. For the following section, the test will be focused on the navigation between all the menus within the game so that the user can access all possible features. Firstly, I will test that the main menu is shown when the program is booted up initially. So when I click play here, You can see the main menu is here. It says checkers, got various buttons on there. So that test has been passed. Now, when I click on the login button, it should take me to the login page. And when I do, it has, which means this second test has been passed. For the sign up page, I'll have to go back to the main menu. And if I click on the sign up button, it takes me to the required page. So this test has also been passed. For the account settings test, I will need to log into an account. So I will use a login that I made earlier. There. So now we've returned to the main menu. It shows our account name up here. And you can see that the main menu has changed so that there's no longer a login and sign up button, but instead there's an account settings button, which means that this test has been passed. For the next test, test number 3.5, it will be to show the change username, password, and delete accounts page. So we've clicked on account settings, it's come up with the account settings menu, and there's various buttons. If I click on the change username button, it takes me to the change username page. If I click on the change password button, it takes me to the change password page. And if I click the delete account button, it takes me to the delete account page, showing that this test has been passed. For the next test, I will be showing the play menu page and what that entails. So if I enter the game and I click on play game, it shows me a new menu showing rules, the one player mode, the two player mode, and a back to main menu button. If I click on the rules, it takes me to a rules tab where you can navigate between various different rules of the game so that you can learn how to play the game if you want to. So that means the play game button test has been passed, along with showing the rules section of the game. I'll show again the next test, test 3.8, I showed it briefly, where on the rules section of the play game menu, you can click the next and previous buttons to navigate between the menus, and once you get to the end, it removes one of the buttons as there's no more menus to navigate to, as well as previous at the very start, meaning that test 3.8 has been passed. Moving on, if I select the one player mode within the game, I can choose the difficulty of my AI and then subsequently enter a game. So if I click one player, you can see it showed me an easy, medium, and hard section that I can click on. And so I can enter a game there, enter a game there, enter a game there. And if I click on the two-player mode, I can enter a game against a second player, showing that this test number 3.9, has passed as well. For test 3.10, I will need to play through a game to show the account, the end game menu, and show that those work. So I will pause the video and be back in a minute. Now I'm near the end of the game. If I finish this game, you can see that I'm taken to an end screen with the options to restart a game, go to the main menu, or quit the game. If I click restart, it should take me back to the play game menu, and the main menu button should take me back to the main menu. So if I click restart, it takes me to the main menu. And if I play through another game, which I will do quickly, I will show you the functionality of the back to main menu button. So I will be back again in a second. Once again, you can see that I'm near the end of the game. If I take this piece off of the board, it will take me back to the end game. And if I click on the main menu button, it will take me back to the main menu. I will now quit the game and say that this test has been passed. Finally, for this section, I'll need to log in to verify that seeing an account's win record is possible within a game. So if I log in to the account that I made earlier, sure, and then I enter a game, you can see that the previous games that I've played on this account, I've won 5, drawn 1, and lost 2. And if I play through another game, then it will update the board. So this test has been passed. Fourth section of testing, I will focus on the validation of user inputs into the system. And first off, I must verify that a user is able to enter text into the areas where needed. So for this example, I will use the sign up menu within my game. So if I click on sign up, you can see that I can click on a field and a cursor will appear, and I can begin entering text. I can do it here, and I can do it here. So this test has been passed. To test the length validation of passwords, I will first enter a valid username, being Joshua Len, which will also satisfy the standard test of test 4.3. And I will show that you are unable to enter a password of length greater than 12 characters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If I press more buttons, you are unable to enter any more characters because you've reached the character limit. So moving on to the standard test here, I will enter the given password, being FLENLEY. Oh, and do it again here. This is an invalid password because the length isn't great enough, so I will slightly alter the test. This also shows that you are unable to enter a password that is too short. So if I click enter now, it's accepted my password and created an account. So I will delete the account quickly to use the same username. Now, if I click sign up again, enter the known valid username, and now attempt to enter an empty string as my password instead, it will be rejected, asking me to fill all the boxes, as this is an erroneous data type and shouldn't be accepted by my algorithms. And for the extreme test, I will be entering the password Joshua Glenn 12. This should be accepted as it only just meets the length requirements, being 12 characters long. So if I enter it, I've created an account, meaning that this test has been passed. And we will sign out of this, we will delete this account quickly, as we have no more need for it. This next test is very similar, but we will be testing the length validation of the username instead. For this area, I am prompted to fill the... what have I done there? We'll try that again. Here we go. I will be prompted to fill the username and password boxes again. I will not repeat the standard test, as I've just shown that it works. For the erroneous string, we will enter a known valid password. And if I click enter, it will once again prompt me to fill all the boxes, because we have an empty string, which is an erroneous data type. And if I enter the boundary data type being Joshua in this fashion, it should accept it as it is just about of the correct length. So if I click enter, it's created that account and this test has been passed. So we'll mark that down as pass. Moving on, test 4.4 is testing the validity of passwords. For a password to be accepted, it must have at least one uppercase character, one lowercase character, a digit, and one special character from a given set. If I enter an empty string, as shown previously, I will be told that the boxes all need to be filled and the password is rejected. If I enter the password Joshua Flen in this fashion, it should be accepted as it just about meets all of the requirements for a password. So when I click enter, it is invalid because I have entered this wrong. So if I enter now, it's created an account with that username and password. Now for the extreme data type, we will enter the known correct username and we will enter this password. And it should be accepted as it only just meets the length requirement and has one of each character, meaning that it won't be accepted because it is too short. So we'll add an exclamation point. Nope, we will add a S at the end of both of them and click enter. It will be rejected again. This test has been failed, so I will mark this down as a fail and I will take the appropriate course of action to remedy the problem. For the final test of this section, I will be checking for username validity. For this, if I enter a string of special characters, as given here, it should be rejected. So the string is an ampersand, exclamation mark, open bracket, close bracket, I, exclamation mark, dollar sign, ampersand, star, and that's the username. If I enter a known valid password, looks like I've typed the first password incorrectly. If I click enter, it will say invalid username, as our username contains special characters, so the erroneous data type has been rejected. If I enter the username, this is a username without the E at the end. This is a username. This should be accepted, as dashes are an accepted special character for usernames. If I click enter, it says invalid password because the passwords are different. If I click enter, this has worked. Once again, I will show that the first test is incorrect as the passwords were incorrect. So I will prove that it is actually working. Exclamation mark ampersand $sign ampersand star. It has once again said invalid username, meaning that the erroneous test has been passed. And if I enter the username Joshua Flen in this fashion, it should be accepted. Username taken. We will try a different username. This has worked, so this test can be marked as a pass, concluding section 4. For the final testing section, I will be looking at the inputs into the database from the login system and the game. For all these tests, I will use the SQLite table viewer that I found online, for which a link had been provided for at the top of the testing section, which I will show now quickly. It is here, so if I click on this link, it will take me to the SQLite viewer. Now if I return to the tests, to check the inputs of the user table, I will create an account and show that it is entered into the database after the fact. So let me do that quickly. We will create an account name called checkers test with the password checkers exclamation mark. These are both valid usernames and passwords, so they should be accepted. If I click enter, we have created a new account. So if I exit the database and go into the SQLite viewer, I should be able to see now that if I go onto the users section, I've created a new account called checkers test with a user ID of 22, username checkers test as we inputted, and a hashed version of the password for security. So this test has been passed. Now for the next two tests, I will have to play a game and show the inputs into the game and the game participants table. So I will log in to this new account that we just created. Checkers test is exclamation mark. So we've logged into our account. If I go into play game, 2-player, I will resume once I have played the game through. As you can see here, I have reached nearly the end of the game. So when I take this piece here, it will end the game. And if I now take the new database file that I have just that has just been updated, I can hopefully see that if it would open, I can now see that the game participant, first off, we'll check the games row. New game with game ID 17, not against the AI, was played at 6:50, which is a minute ago. So that's just been added to the database. And if I go to game participants, game ID 17, user ID 22, which was the account that we just created, checkers test, you can see that the player 1 won, meaning that this test has been passed. So input into games has passed, input into game participants has been passed. So this concludes the black box testing for my project, and shows that nearly all of my tests have passed, apart from test 4.4, which I will remedy and show working at a later date. It turns out that the error in the extreme test of test 4.4 was not a problem with the code itself, it was a problem with the test. So instead of testing this password, which it will reject because it is too short, I will be testing a password with Joshua FL added on at the end, and this should work instead. So if I open my code, and go to sign up, we'll use this is a test as our username, and we say Joshua FL. This should work. As you can see, we've created an account called This Is a Test with that password. So in the end, test 4.4 has worked. So I have passed all of the tests that I laid out in my black box testing. Thank you for watching the video for my black box testing for my checkers NEA.